Well, my name is Gustavo Diaz. I'm Costa Rican, born and raised in San Jose, the capital city. Uh, Spent here all my life until I graduated Earth University, and then I've spent 9 out of the last 10 years abroad for work, and just recently got back. So, one older sister, one younger brother. You know, basically. Well, I graduated in 2003, so it's 10 years now. And I've stayed connected to the university mostly through internships. I've spent some time working in the US, and then I worked in Jamaica. And at every one of the farms and projects I worked at, I've always had Earth University interns. So that's been the most direct contact I've had with the university. Faculty goes up there to check up on the students midway through each internship. And then more recently in Jamaica, we started looking for potential students. The university had never had any Jamaican students. So as I was working over there, we embarked on the quest to kind of go to the schools, ag schools and other related, to identify people that could be interested in applying to come here. And then of course doing the interviewing process and all of that and selection process. And last year we got the first 2 students from Jamaica and then 1 this year. So I've been involved in that capacity. Well, right now I own a business which is dedicated to the production and processing and distribution and selling of coconut water. Here in Costa Rica we do export occasionally. We've had a few challenges with shelf life of the product, which has precluded us from being able to export for some time, but we're getting over that. So we've built a pretty good and reliable customer base nationally. So, you know, we have distribution 6 days a week and we go everywhere. So it's pretty good. Aside of that, as a professional, what I've done is I've mostly been involved with organic farming, sustainable farming, diversified operations. I did that in Virginia for 4 years. I spent 2 years doing that on Maui. And then I spent 3 years in Jamaica on similar type projects, which also included some ecotourism or hospitality component. Earth has shaped my personal and professional life in a very special way. I grew up in the middle class environment in my country, and I always went to private school. And in a way, I grew up in a bubble, right? I had my friends from school, and that's it. I wasn't really connected to the national reality. You're young, that's where you're growing up in that environment, and that's what you know. And coming here opens you up to very different cultural, socioeconomic, uh, all types of experiences that as a teenager or a boy, you've just given the conditions in which you grew, you were just not exposed to that. And that's important because it changes your entire perspective of things. You're now in touch with people from all these different countries, from all these different backgrounds, and you're working with them, you're learning with them, you're befriending them as well. And it just changes how you look at everything, your personal relationships, how you value other people, how you value what things are like in other countries. It gives you a greater perspective on the value of traveling, for example, which I think it's unsubstitutable. You have to travel, you have to see the world, you have to do all these things to really gain perspective on how things are in other places. So I think that if I hadn't done that, I probably would have become a doctor in a very bubble type environment, and that would be who I would be today. I would probably not be entrepreneurial in nature. I would not be worldly in a way, and my perspective on things would be far more constrained than it is today. So to me, Earth University, beyond the technical aspects of what you learn and all those things which you can get anywhere in some measure, I mean, the hands-on experience is very unique and you don't find it everywhere, but the technical basis, I mean, there's lots of places where you can get that. But that human touch, that is something that I haven't found anywhere else. So that does shape you for the rest of your life. I would say the mission of Earth, at least in my opinion, is a change of mindset. We're all a product in some fashion of our own upbringing and the society in which we grow and whatever surrounds us at the time. And we have this filter that we've built over time, and through that filter we see the world. And coming here, in a way, it helps you reboot, and it helps you do away with things that could be better in you as an individual, as an individual and as part of a greater society, you know, as a component of a team or something that is meant to change. So the change of mindset is important because it helps you see the world in a different way. And then when you interact, when you work, when you're dealing with farmers, or when you're dealing with your boss, or when you're dealing with business people, whatever sector of society you're dealing with, you've now got this resource base, this toolkit, so to speak, that helps you filter experiences in a more meaningful way. I think that you can consider your decision-making process is now enhanced because of how you see the world and how you see the other people that you're interacting with. And I only say this because, again, in traveling, you meet people that have never traveled where you go, and they're very insular. That's what they know, and that's all they can really grasp. It's like you're stunted in your ability to grasp other concepts, abstract your thought in meaningful ways. And that only comes if you're exposed to different things, I think, at a right stage of development. And that, in a very important way, is what Earth University does. I think Earth University fosters leadership by, first of all, letting students know that they can be leaders. I think, again, a component of society and a very important element of your socioeconomic upbringing is whether you feel empowered. You know, you go to these communities, and at least from a professional experience, and you find capable young people who have the right attitude, because in the field, in rural areas, you find people that are slackers, as you would find anywhere, and you find people that are really hard workers. And for one reason or another, they've not finished high school or elementary school. They're in a position where they've lost opportunities, right? And they feel within themselves that maybe they're not worthy of coming to a place like this, or that they're not smart enough, or they can't adapt. Like it's something so foreign and so far away that it's not even a possibility. If you're able to get them here, that's the first step, of course, and that's a very meaningful step. But then you start this process of empowering people and helping them understand that they can, in fact, make a change. And change doesn't have to be changing hundreds or thousands of people, because that is always relative to where you're coming from. Are you going back to your community? Are you working with rural associations, working with a small group of farmers where you're coming from? Or are you doing something that maybe has a larger economic impact? Whatever it is, the point is that you are now empowered in your own abilities. So you have a toolkit, but the toolkit is not enough. Now you feel, okay, I can really go there and make a change. However big that change is going to be, it's a change of mindset that years before, for many of us, it wouldn't have clicked. That switch would not have been on, where you say, okay, yes, instead of just being an employee at a company, even if I'm an employee as I start, I can help shape how people think within that organization. And if you do have the possibility to work in a greater leadership role, then your effect can be larger. But the point is, wherever you're at in the chain, you feel empowered to do more. Sure. So I will contextualize it in Jamaica, just because I think it's a good example of what you're saying. Jamaica is a country that is a place where you're either very wealthy or have access to lots of resources that most people don't, or you really are at the bottom of the rung. And if you're there because the cost of living is so high relative to what the traditional person makes, it's just very difficult. So when you are able to educate someone from a rural community and send that person back, it does not only empower the individual, but the reason why that individual in part can be successful in that community, in my opinion, is because the others now feel empowered. It's like, I guess I would equate it to, you have a group of people saying, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't jump so far. If you jump, you're going to fall in the river. And then someone jumps and actually gets to the other side. And then people feel, okay, So he did it. I can do it. Maybe I could do it. So you send that person back with an education, and then people get a sense of this is possible. And they feel more empowered to collaborate with that person. So it's kind of a synergy that comes from that individual that had that opportunity and realized that opportunity and now is coming back to work with the community. I mean, that said, the person has to come back with the right attitude, with the humility that is required to operate within that context. But provided that you have that, then you really open everybody's eyes in that context, and that is what is so powerful. That's why the power of change, in my opinion, there's a multiplying effect. And I see it. I remember one of our workers at the farm in Jamaica, one of our housekeepers. You could tell that she really cared about education. She had no education, but she has a daughter. And she has been so adamant throughout her daughter's life to make sure she finishes elementary school and high school, and she's very active in trying to get her to a school, to a university where she can become more. So of course the mother has tantamount importance in what this girl is going to become. And you do need that in a community to make that leap. Otherwise the teenager is the teenager. You know, you don't know any better, unfortunately, right? But once that happens and that leap occurs, it's just a massive multiplying effect. You have testimony from the mother, from the now educated individual, and then other people become interested and they start asking questions, and how do we do this? And maybe university is not for them, but then you can think of other things. Okay, you can go to CASE and maybe you do a 1-year degree. You know, you do other things and you start building on people's skills and you improve their ability to earn living wages, which is so important. I would say that you need a fundamental change of mindset in the way Latinos and Africans and people in developing countries, even in the developed world, but for this particular case in the developing world, in the way people think, in the way they're empowered, in the way they tackle issues, in a more comprehensive way, thinking of mechanisms by which you can reduce or eliminate as much as you can the impact on the environment. You need that change of mindset fundamentally to be able to progress in a different direction. And Earth University fosters that in a way that other institutions don't. They simply don't. So if you want to do that, that help in rebooting, you really do need a place like Earth University. You should donate to Earth University because Earth University is the key to the change of mindset that the developing world needs to foster progress and change for future generations. I don't think my story is particularly interesting, but I'll tell it anyway. When I graduated high school, I was really unsure of what I wanted to do. I applied to several schools, very different disciplines, biotech, medicine, and I applied to Earth University. My sister was a student here at the time, so I had some idea of what it was, but I wasn't really well immersed in what the experience would actually be. So when I got the call, I was happy. I was very happy that I had been accepted. In part, I wanted to be accepted because my sister was in, so you know, it would have been weird for me if I was not accepted. So I was very happy about that. But then it struck me that I needed to make a decision because I had been accepted to the other schools as well. And I was just trying to be practical. I was at home actually. Back from high school, senior year. And I remember having the call. I don't remember who it was who called me. I mean, that's very, very specific. But it was a good, brief conversation, and I remember it because it was, you've been accepted. And I was very happy for it. Then, of course, you start talking about, you know, how are you going to pay for it, and are you going to, you know, all those details, which is, you know, it goes alongside the whole process. And then I decided to come here, and it wasn't, maybe it wasn't the best reason to decide it, because Earth University started first. Classes for us started somewhere around the 10th or 12th of January. Med school started in February, and the other one started a little bit later. So I said, you know, I'm going to go. If I don't like the first month, I'll go back to med school. I have time.
But
And I stayed the first month and I said, no, I like this. And then I said, okay, my scores are good for another year. So I'll stay the first year. And if I don't like it, I can still use my grades for the next year. And I stayed the first year and I liked it. And the reason I loved it was because it changes you fundamentally. And even today, I see people that graduated from high school with me who follow different career paths. And they're still in that bubble. And to me, that's sad because I think you don't experience the world in a meaningful way. I mean, maybe that's a little conceited to say. Maybe it's not true entirely. But from my perspective, you don't get to see the world's full picture. And uh, I would have lost the opportunity to do that had I not come here. So the decision was fundamentally the best for me because it changed me as an individual. You can get a good education in many places, but the hands-on experience and that change of mindset only comes from coming here. Earth is changing the world one step at a time. When I think of the graduates and the people that I know and the different things people are doing, you see some people that are working in small projects, in small communities, and they're getting people finally on board with doing things in a fundamentally different way. There are others that have gone to create big companies and now employ hundreds of people, and then they're changing the world in that way. But for example, I have a fellow colleague of mine from my graduating class who's working in Ecuador with designing toilets. It's a sanitation system. It's not anything they teach you here, but because your mindset has fundamentally changed, then you have a new toolkit to tackle the problems of the world, things that are meaningful. So one step at a time, because people are thinking outside of the box and trying to deal with issues that are fundamental to the future of humankind, with waste management, with pollution, with environmental awareness, with recycling, with technifying agriculture, because we need to increase yields all over the place, and that comes with technology and knowledge. The farmer has incredible knowledge, but he can take you just so far. If you want to make that leap, that quantitative leap in yields and in other things, you need science. So you can really complement their expertise with what we learn here. So one step at a time with little and big projects.